Salam and welcome back to Somali Dispatch. My name is Abdul Qadir Guled, and we have with us astute scholar and political analyst Faisal Roble. And we're here to talk about Somaliland's 31st anniversary, what achievements there were and the setbacks as well. So Faisal, as a stout political analyst in East African affairs, when you go back briefly all the way to 91 and what facilitated, if you will, the succession of Somaliland to its initial independence from Britain, and how you see that, and what was the thought at the time among Somalis in general about that decision?
Well, as the decision was tough, that divided Somalis, and there has never been a unity around that decision. Somaliland issue of secession did not start in 1991. I think there was an attempt in the 1960s when a mutiny was organized by some Somaliland young officers. But at the same time, also during the National Somali Movement (SNM), the political program of SNM initially didn't reflect secession. According to I.M. Lewis's book, Blood and Bone, SNM program was never to secede from Somalia. It was just something that grew out of the political wranglings towards the end of the days of defeating the Somali National Army and ejecting the Somali National Army from Somaliland. So it has its own dynamics, but Somalis are divided on the issue.
Right. Other SNM leaders, Somali National Movement, as you can tell by its name, was not a secessionist organization or rebel group, as you alluded to in referencing that book. Other successive leaders of the SNM would also confirm that saying. But after 31 years, what achievements could Somaliland achieved or have achieved, and in the interest of Somalilanders, what setbacks were there?
Yeah, the biggest achievement is the enviable peace that region has. It is the most peaceful region, in a way, in the entire Horn of Africa, even sometimes including Kenya, which is supposed to be the hub for Western, offices and presence in the Horn of Africa. So that's not a small feat. Here is a country or a region, if you will, depending on who you are, that doesn't have any recognition from the rest of the world, doesn't have big tanks and missiles, and it established peace. That goes credit both to the people of Somaliland as well as to its leaders. The other, I think, success is the grassroots-based electoral process that it maintained for a number of years. Not only that, it has also diversified in terms of who can become the president. It's the only area in Somalia that we know of where a non-majority president got the office, not only one term, but 2 terms, if I remember correctly, Bayale, who's from Alda. It didn't happen in any other part of Somalia. So those are, achievements, and I think the resilience and the belief of the people of Somaliland to pull by their bootstraps, as Americans call, and do things on their own for themselves. Those are great things that we all need to just appreciate. Challenges are there. I think Somaliland has not convinced the entire community of Somaliland on the secession agenda. There is a lag from Audal. There is a total rejection in the Sol and Senag, and there is also currently sort of hesitation coming from Bur and Senag area. So those are challenges internal. The external challenges, maybe if you want, I can talk, but those are also massive.
Yes, we will get to the external stuff as well. And we've seen a recent research in US interest in that region, as all it be the strategic position of Berbera. What can we, if we read between the lines of that engagement, what stands out to you?
I think it stands out to me as if the world realized that the Somaliland talks are a very, very prolonged, protracted talks. It's not going to finish in Hassan Sheikh Mohamud's terms or even beyond. We're talking about 31 years already. So the world, particularly big powers, and even sometimes our neighbors, are coming to the reality that they will not violate the territorial integrity of Somalia, but they will start doing business with both sides. So I think in the interest of, in light of what's happening in the world, in light of the rivalry that's now being renewed between the superpowers, the US wants to maintain good relationship with Somaliland without giving recognition. They think they can do that. And Somaliland is conscious enough not to push the big powers to say, you will not come to my place unless you give me recognition. I think they will try to use the agreement or the talks between Somaliland and the US on the military engagement as a way to create conditions or preconditions for meaningful talks. The army doesn't give recognition, nor a US Congress who visits gives recognition. But those are cultivating the land for Somali leaders, if they understand, to exploit those and create those good conditions to seek the big ticket.
Right. What is all this is new again in politics in Horn of Africa in terms of the dual, track engagement from the states to Somalis in the region. But if we look at the two successive Kulmiye governments in Hargeisa and what they've achieved or the setbacks there were, as much as analysts like yourselves and political minded people praise Somaliland for the things that you have praised, there are huge setbacks in terms of freedom of expression, the lack of confidence in the people's wants and needs, and making baffling arrests in Hargeisa and Burra, extraditing Somalis from their regions. How big of a setbacks are those for Somaliland's, seeking recognition?
That's a huge setback for Somaliland. I think it looks like the leaders haven't understood that when they tell to the outside world that Somaliland is democratic, it's not only the electoral process that makes you democratic. Being that young lady who uses a scarf for her cover with a Somali flag, that's her individual right. Yeah, it's not a violation of Somaliland's goals and objectives. It's just an expression of a young person who is under 30 who wants to express what they like or what they don't like. That's not a violation of the constitution. Compare that to what happened this week in Mogadishu on May 18, when youth from Somaliland who reside in Mogadishu rented a hall and threw a huge party to stand for the secession and independence of Somaliland. Look at the juxtaposition between Somaliland arresting a 20-something-year-old girl who used a scarf with a Somali flag, arrested, and this one. So I think, in my opinion, it's a lack of Somaliland leaders in terms of understanding what democracy and how democracy is understood. It's beyond, democracy is beyond the electoral process. Dictators even do electoral process and hold, as you know, throughout Africa. But press freedom, individual freedom, freedom of movement, freedom of expression, freedom of demonstration with the right permit, all those are the elements of what we call democratic rights. So I think on that area, Somaliland has challenged. Somaliland should be able to host debate, like Ali Khalif, the late Ali Khalif started, to debate inside Hargeisa whether secession is the right or wrong way. Let people like Chirde, Rahman Chirde, I think that's his name, speak their voices, although they may support Somaliland's independence, but they will give it a different text. So let voices from different angles come. That may even help Somaliland, who knows?
Right. And there's also the dispute within the last 2 weeks over the presidential election coming, and the president reportedly preferring to annul the certificates of the three national parties and perhaps have a new parties go to the polls first prior to the presidential election. The opposition parties vehemently and violently, perhaps at times, opposed that and told the world what their outlook is on that move by the president. Yeah, cares to weigh in on that issue?
Yeah, I think it's not always good to dictate unless they audit it and they found in the audit that there are massive national corruption by the opposition groups. If you don't have that, if they abide rules, people have the right to establish their own political parties. I think one thing that is not really in line with kosher or positive political culture is some of the inflammatory speeches that one of the leaders of the political party uses, whether those speeches are against the president of Somaliland, Musa Bihi, or other regions. I think leaders like that who use genocidal and, if you will, inflammatory language should be barred, if possible, from political activism. And if somebody like that heads a political party, the government has the right to challenge the top leadership of that party and tell them either to get that person rid of or nullify the party, because the party is supposed to be, in a way, working within the vision that is set up for the country and constitutionally. So I've seen a lot of languages that no other country would accept from. I mean, you have seen in this country where the former president of the United States went out of hand in terms of speech until he reached January 6th, it ended up in a very unforeseen thing. So I think, party leaders have responsibilities, but to close the doors of a party and say you are null and void without any credible audit, I think that's wrong.
Right. Somaliland has somewhat, it's known for its relationship with the central government of Ethiopia. Many have criticized and others welcome that relationship. But outside of that, what regional relationships could Somaliland work on and achieve in terms of their end goal?
I think they have
and
good
what are the challenges?
Yeah, they have good relationship also with Djibouti, with Kenya at this point in time. But the challenges are, I think, I don't have the number, but there is a section at the, of the United Nations General Assembly resolution 14 something that really is conservative when it comes to sovereign territorial integrity of a given country. So Somaliland's challenge has been not because they haven't been working day and night, it's international instruments are too high and too difficult to change. I wrote a long article, research piece for the Horn of Africa Journal in 2010, where I debated at the time Iqbal Shibaz, who is pro-Somaliland. And in the research, I found out that Bangladesh, which had a similar situation with Somalia, was not recognized until it got a sponsor country through geopolitical interest. And the day one big power announced the recognition of Bangladesh, within 48 hours, 40 countries handed down their recognition. South Sudan, was basically crafted its secession by the Bush administration. And Bush administration was forced to do so. Who told Bush for his second term that they will not secession of Sudan possible. So I think Somaliland hasn't gotten a voice like that, and Kenya and Ethiopia will not jump on recognition for Somaliland until they see a big power pushing, because this is, the UN doesn't give you recognition. It's bilateral countries that gives you recognition and then lobbies for you and takes your agenda to the UN to back it and get in the votes.
Right. It's interesting that Somaliland is challenging such article, and also in the African Union's border articles, that Africans should leave the colonial borders alone. I'm paraphrasing there. Somaliland in 1960 challenged that by merging with Somalia. Yet again, they're trying to reverse that step, which is a tough feat. But lastly, there are constituent leaders, as they were called, from Somaliland in the Somali central government, in the parliament, both upper and lower houses, in the cabinet, and so on. Are those individuals a challenge to the conversations between Mogadishu or Hargeisa, or are they added value, or they have an added value?
First of all, I think in terms of the Somaliland challenging the existing international instruments and IGAD, I think it has the right to do so, because even we Somali, when we're trying to debate Ethiopia over this Western Somali, we tried to challenge those. So simply because they are in the books as an international instrument, it doesn't mean that everybody is satisfied with. If Somaliland is not satisfied, part of its strategy should also be to poke holes in the existing international. Whether they will succeed that or not, I'm not sure. That's something else. As to the issue of Somalilanders who are in Mogadishu and whether they have a role, and rather a parliamentarian like the ones who are from Somaliland who are now in Mogadishu need to show to the rest of the world they have constituents, electorate constituents. And up to this point, we have not seen that they have any constituents. They may have constituents who supports them in their home turf, but they can't go there. So how can they prove that somebody who comes from Hargeisa or Borama has a large following if they cannot campaign there and show in rallies who supports their ideas of unity? And so the way the world looks at this individualism is something akin to as if Somalia or the central government co-opted them. And Somalis themselves consider these people as people who don't have really basis, particularly the Gurbis who come from the central part of Somaliland. I think with SSC and Lasanud area, you can say it's different because their areas are showing some resistance to Hargeisa and to a certain extent Outer. But I think those folks who are in Mogadishu who hail from Somaliland so far has been inconsequential. I just don't know how they would be participating in the in future talks between the two sides. And that's why I'm saying Mogadishu, after Hassan Sheikh Mohamud takes and establishes government, he will need to approach this in a very methodical way and have a model logic or logic model to see how these talks can be established. Otherwise, it will not be productive.
And the fact that others would argue that they are part and parcel in efforts or disputes that arise within Somalia's government, and they lean one way or the other, and they seem to be either a tiebreaker or an enabler in those disputes that could actually have an effect on governance and peace building in southern Somalia. Do you agree with that analysis? Is there anything to that?
Totally agree with you. And I think, are they there to stand for Somaliland? Are they there to side with the prospective winner so that they can get position? They are in a very tight position. They haven't even came together all together and showed to us their political platform or blueprint of why they are in Mogadishu and why they how they're going to achieve the union for the rest of Somalia. I sympathize with them. I really do, in the sense that they're in a tough spot without having constituency, without knowing who supports them. By telephone, remote telephone calling Hargeisa and Bur'o and Awdal and Las Anod and Borama, how much can they change? I don't know, but I think you're right. Some people may accuse them of interfering or playing a role in an inter-communal conflict within South Somalia. But they are Somalis, so they have the right. I'm not questioning that. Their challenge, in my opinion, is how can they push their agenda, and what's their agenda, and what is their platform? Are they a caucus that has a program? Here we have the Black Caucus, and you know what the Black Caucus want in terms of housing, in terms of transportation, in terms of helping. So I think they need to be a bit organized as a Somaliland contingent, come up with their programs, sell to the rest of the world that this is what they stand for, and then lobby from that point of view and pressure the Somali government the direction that they like it to see. Now they don't.
I really appreciate your thoughts on this, and I can't thank you enough for joining us today. Thank you so much, Faisal Roble. I look forward in having similar discussions in the near future with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Abdul Qadir.